Hakuna Matata, which means don't worry, be happy. I remember this very song from the film The Lion King when I'm about to talk of our guest today. I have the feel of being Hakuna Matata. We have a very interesting personality on board with us, the one whose creative potential is limitless. The doyen of advertising industry, very famously known as the ad guru. He is also known as the polymath of Indian theatre, the creator of English language which went viral even without internet in those days. An actor, director, a fashion icon, he has walked the ramp for many great causes. A well built personality, he is a total fitness freak. A humble guy, an animal lover. He has 6 dogs, one cat, an African parrot, a macaw, a cuckoo, many rescue birds, 12 piranhas, 10 golden crown fishes, and still counting. His breakthrough in his career was when he joined the Kuna Associates in 1977 as a creative head. He personally worked on the strategy planning and creative for some of the most prestigious blue chip companies in India: Glaxo, Sandoz, McDowell Series, Life Insurance Corporation of India, Britannia Industries, Amul Butter, Parley Soft Drinks, Seat Tires, Videocon, to name a few. He's won many awards. He's won national awards for excellency in advertising for Amul Butter for 14 years in a row. He's won gold trophies for LIC, Glaxo, Tata Tea. Won advertising campaign of the year for Fruity. Won advertising excellency trophy for multimedia campaign for Amul Nutramul. Media Innovation Award for advertising of feature film Gardish. He's also won 3 international awards for advertising excellency given by International Federation of Advertising Agencies by USA. He formed Zen Communication, the fastest growing advertising agency, 2 years in a row. The agency had a record of launching and sustaining the number one brands in India like Goodnight, Tata Tea, UTI Bank, the Exim Bank, launch of Thumbs Up 500, Fruity, Hit, many products of Godrej and Tata, to name some. He was for 18 years on the jury panel of Advertising Agencies Association of India. He was chosen as one of the 50 most admired Maharashtrians by Times Group. The polymath of Indian theatre. He's directed 32 English plays and have all had Golden Jubilee runs. A musical comedy, Blame It on Yash Raj, had a record breaking 100 shows. He wrote and directed Bottoms Up, the longest running musical English play in the history of English theatre in India. India's biggest theatrical magnum opus, Shivaji the Enigma, had a 3-story set, a cast of 275 actors, and actions with live elephants and horses. He wrote India's first musical folk play in English, Tamasha Mumbai style, and many more. He anchored an adventure reality show, Shock TV, for Star TV. He wrote and anchored India's first advertising and marketing program, The Dream Merchants, for Zee TV. He's acted in many Bollywood films with the biggies of industries, in Marathi films, in films down south like Malayalam, Telugu, and a Tamil film Baba with superstar Rajnikant. He has conceptualized and produced a music video on Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee based on one of his poems, Unki Yaad Kare. Well, the list goes on, friends. Presenting before you, ladies and gentlemen, the nationally and internationally famous, but grounded to roots, a hardcore Hindustani, true to his name, Mr. Bharat Dhabolkar.
And 5 boys in my class. And the problem was all the pretty girls in my class, they all spoke English. And I couldn't speak a single sentence in English. Even if a girl came to me and said, shall we bunk the next lecture and go for a film? I would answer it in my mind in Marathi first. I would say, मी आईला घरी जेवायला येतो म्हणून सांगितलं आहे. So I cannot come. Then I would translate that in my mind. I have told my mother I'll come home for lunch. I would say that 2, 3 times in my mind. So by the time I had an answer ready for that girl, she would have gone for the film and come back. So I realized that if I have to talk to these pretty girls, I must learn to speak in some way. Then I realized that I can speak Marathi, I can speak Hindi, I can speak Gujarati. So I started mixing these words. You see, all of us who come from vernacular medium, we know English. We have a problem with spoken English because when we are speaking in a sentence, we suddenly find that we don't know the correct word to use. So I started using a Hindi word if I didn't know English word. I started using a Marathi word or a Gujarati word. And somehow that became, later on, it became fashionable and somebody called it Hinglish. And I started using that in advertising, I started using that in theater, and it worked. I think so. That's how Hinglish was formed. It wasn't some very intelligent invention on my part. It was a handicap that I had. That I didn't know both the languages very well, so I had to mix and match.
That went out really well with audiences and people and could connect with you in your advertising and your plays.
It worked with, yeah, it worked with in advertising. It worked when I started doing Amul butter advertising. I used to write those slogans in half Hindi, half English. When I did my plays, I wrote my plays in half English, half Hindi, half Gujarati, half Marathi. I took actors from regional theaters. So suddenly the English plays became more accessible to people. You see, before I started doing plays, English theater was very English. So it had a limited audience. They would do about 25 shows because then audience got over. Because those who understand Marathi saw Marathi plays, those who understood Gujarati saw Gujarati plays, those who understood Hindi. So it wasn't, there was no audience large enough for an English play. So when I started doing plays in English and started using brilliant actors from Marathi stage, Gujarati stage, Hindi stage, and English stage, it suddenly reached out to a large number of people. So we had our plays running without stop. I mean, Bottoms Up ran for something like 7, 8 years non-stop. So that created a whole new audience because of the language and the kind of actors that we got on the stage.
So having studied law, when did you realize your passion towards creativity?
I'll tell you what, I never wanted to get into advertising. My lifelong ambition was to be a police officer. I wanted to be an IPS officer. From the age of 4 till I came to college, that's the only ambition I had. So I thought law would help. So I joined government law college and I did law. But then somehow I never did the IPS exam and I started working in a company called Forbes, Campbell and Company. And there I got interested in advertising. So I joined an advertising agency about a year later.
So you have judged so many shows. What is creativity to you? Like if you want to hire someone for your advertising agency, what creative thing you look in a person?
The trouble with advertising is everybody feels that they have to be very creative. So they write the way nobody understands. So creativity has to be very simple. You know, the best advertising board that I have seen was in Hong Kong. It was outside a shop and it said, seedless grapes, very sweet, sold here. I think that is the best creative I have seen. Very simple, straightforward, tells you what you want to know. If an advertising guy had said the same thing, he wouldn't have said seedless grapes, very sweet, sold here. He would have said nature's bounty now brought to you in its most pristine form for your pleasure, which means nothing. So I think advertising creativity is being as simple as you can. And don't try and be creative. Try and be different, but be simple. Don't try and use words that people don't understand just to show off your knowledge of any language. Don't try and rhyme every sentence that you write. Be simple. I launched a product called Hit Cockroaches, where I had a simple slogan: cockroach, cockroach, hit cockroach, no cockroach.
Okay.
And we had a two full-page advertising campaign that time in newspapers, where the left side was full of cockroaches. We actually shot real cockroaches, life-size cockroaches. So the entire page, when you opened your paper in the morning, it was the most disgusting thing to see. It was full of cockroaches. And the word said cockroach, cockroach. And the other side was completely white, and there was a red hit can. and it said hit cockroach, no cockroach. And we had a 70% market share. We defeated all our competitors because it was simple. So I think creativity has to be very simple and straightforward, not complicated.
So we keep mixing the branding, marketing, and advertising. So what difference is there between marketing, branding, and advertising?
No, I'll tell you what, advertising is just a small part of marketing. Marketing means that you decide what product are you going to sell, at what price are you going to sell, where are you going to sell it, and how are you going to sell it. So advertising is just one aspect of marketing that helps you sell it better. So if you go into a market and you find that you have 10 different soaps, and you want to sell your soap, which is the 11th soap in the market, to the same people, which costs the same. What we do is advertising, we create a different positioning for that soap so that people think it is better than the other 10 soaps that are in the market. So advertising is a part of marketing that creates new slogans, new things, just for the sake of creating a difference and making it more desirable to people. So there is no difference in marketing and advertising. Branding means that how do I give a name to this soap? My soap is the 11th soap in the market. What name can I give it? What color packaging can I have for it? What is the slogan that can I have for the product? All that comes in branding. It's all a part of marketing. It's not different from advertising, marketing, branding are all one and the same thing. It's different aspects of marketing.
How do you explain the crazy need of brands bringing in celebrities, film stars to advertise for their product?
See, when you start using superstars to advertise your product, it just means that you're very lazy. That you don't want to spend time thinking of good creative ideas. You get Amitabh Bachchan, you feel that your work is done. You don't have to worry about what slogan to use, what positioning to use. Or you have a Shah Rukh Khan or a Salman Khan, you feel it's very easy because you've got these superstars. I think some of the best advertising that has been done without film stars. I mean, take my Amul butter, for instance. It is the longest running campaign in the history of advertising, world over. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records because it's run for some 50 years or more with just that cartoon girl. Or take the campaign for Fevikwik. I don't know if you remember that. Fevikwik had a campaign of this fisherman sitting on a thing and he puts 4 dots on a stick and immediately catches 4 fish. There were no film stars in that. So I think good creative ideas, if you want to use a film star, you should use it to make it better. You cannot replace an idea with a film star. You cannot say, I have Amitabh Bachchan to model for me, so I don't have to worry about the creative idea. That doesn't work. Because see, what happens is, these stars do so many ads. I think Amitabh Bachchan is seen in so many campaigns, people don't even remember what brand he's advertising for. He's advertising for a hair oil, he's advertising for a bank, he's advertising for some polio drops, he's for a jeweler. So at some point, it gets very confusing. And very honestly, a film star gives you recognition, but the credibility is very low. Not everybody believes that these guys are actually using those products. So if I did a campaign for Nutramul, which is a health drink of Amul, and I used Dara Singh in that. Now, Dara Singh was a symbol of health. So it made sense to use Dara Singh for a health product. But to use Shah Rukh Khan to launch Santro car makes no sense. Because people know that all these stars have big cars. They have Range Rovers, they have Mercedes, they have BMWs. They don't drive their own cars. They have chauffeurs driving it. So Shah Rukh Khan suddenly coming and saying, I drive a Santro, has no credibility. So I think that is the wrong way of advertising. You can't just put a star where it's not required or where it's not relevant. So when you use a star, you must keep in mind that, can I use the acting ability of the star and make my campaign look better? If you can do that, that works. But not just for the sake of, I nowadays see a fruity ad with Alia Bhatt, which means nothing. I launched Fruity. So I had that slogan which said mango fruity, fresh and juicy. And for maybe 15 years, I handled that product. So suddenly to get Alia Bhatt and just put a picture there makes no sense. Or I launched Appy. Now I suddenly see a Salman Khan campaign with Salman Khan with a bottle of Appy in his hand. Now Salman Khan's image does not go with the Appy image. When he did Thumbs Up, it made sense because Thumbs Up was a taste the thunder, a strong man's drink, all that. So it made sense. But Appy is like it's an apple juice. So having Salman Khan in a polka dotted shirt made no sense in that. So a lot of times advertising campaigns are done with no one giving any thought to how it's going to work. It's just for the sake of getting a star, they put a star, which is very wrong.
Yeah, ideas being replaced by film stars, you're saying that.
Yeah, and that's the sign of laziness. I don't need to think about great ideas because I have a film star. So what difference does it make? And that's the wrong attitude. It doesn't work in the long run.
So what, according to you, is a good client for an advertising agency? What is the relation?
I had the best client in the world. Nobody in the world has a client like I had. I had Dr. Kurian, who was the chairman of Amul. Now, when we started advertising for Amul, now I did not launch the Amul Girl. She already existed. So Amul Girl was there. The slogan "Utterly Butterly Delicious" was there. I just took it forward. I didn't think of that. But when Dr. Kurian called us, he said, I understand milk. I understand milk products. I do not understand advertising. But I have faith in you. Don't show me what you do. So in a year, I would do about 40, 45 hoardings on Amul butter. I would do a campaign for Amul milk, Amul lassi, Amul chas, Amul milkshakes, Nutramul. He had never seen it. I would go to him at the end of the year and say, this is what we did for you last year. He hadn't seen it till then. You don't get a client like this. Clients always have a thing of the 10 people sitting in a committee and interfering in what you do. And everybody has a thought. And that never works. I think Amul worked because of a man like Dr. Kurian. And nobody in the world, no advertising agency in the world has a client like Dr. Kurian. So if I go and give an international, in a seminar, if I give a talk, when I mention this, I get a standing ovation for being lucky enough to have a client like Dr. Kurian. He was that fantastic. And that is what is important. You know, I have if I send you an email, I have a slogan at the bottom of my email permanently. It says, Camel is a horse designed by a committee.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, if the committee says, I want to design a horse, then somebody would say, why don't we make his legs a little longer? Then somebody would say, why don't we give him a hump on the back so he can hold on to it? Somebody says, why don't we? So everybody has an idea. So at the end of the meeting, you don't get a horse, you get a camel. So don't design a horse with a committee. Let one man design that horse. So I always feel that advertising works best when it's one thought that goes through. Then people shouldn't contribute to that. If you don't like the thought, reject it. If I go to a client with a campaign and he says, I think that this can be changed, I said, okay, drop it. Let's do something completely new. But let's not say use the color from this campaign and use the slogan from this campaign and the visual from this campaign. It doesn't work like that. It's a mishmash of things. It never works. Too many cooks spoil the broth. There's an old English saying. So advertising that works very well.
So yeah, creativity is nothing but a mindset screen.
Yeah, it is a thought. You have faith in somebody.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kurian said that. He said, look, I will not interfere in what you do. I will not see what you do. But if my product does not sell, I will not change your advertising. I will change the agency. I'll get somebody else to work on these agencies. So be careful, advertise properly, and that puts tremendous responsibility on you. Now, like, let's say that 25 of us are sitting here today and we decide that let's create some slogan. And if we get everybody's approval, and if that slogan goes wrong, all of us are responsible for that because we all had a look at that slogan. But suppose I tell you, you do a slogan, don't show anybody. And then if it goes wrong, only you are responsible. So you take much more care, you take many more precautions to make sure that the slogan won't go wrong. So I think that is important. That give authority, give responsibility, and let the person do what he does best. Don't interfere with what he is doing.
So we have one question from the audience, and they say, like, apart from creativity, what other skill is required in this industry to be successful?
See, I'll tell you one thing. People make a mistake thinking that advertising is all about creativity. It isn't. creative is just one department in advertising. See, advertising has a thing of, we have a client servicing department, which means there are people who go and meet the client, take a brief from what they want to do, come back and brief the agency people with that, create campaigns, take it back to the client to sell that idea. That's the client servicing department. They don't have to be creative. You have MBAs or any other management degrees that they have who can work with the client. So that's client servicing. Then we have a department which is a media department, which means once a campaign is created, where should we show it? Because you can't show it to everybody. You have to make sure that people you are going to buy your product are seeing that campaign. So in media department, there are two different versions. There is a media planner. So if a client comes and says, I have 10,000 rupees to spend, where should I spend it? Then the planner says, let's spend 2,000 rupees on television, of that 1,000 rupees on Z, and let's spend 5,000 rupees on press. In that we'll use Hindi press or Tamil press or Telugu press or Marathi press, depending on where your consumers are. Let's spend so much money on hoardings. So that is the planning of the media department, keeping in mind who your consumer is. Then there's another part of media department where we go to the suppliers. Let's say we decide that we're going to spend 5,000 rupees on television and we are using Z television. Then the media buyer goes to Z television and says, we want to buy this program. How much do you charge us? Then they'll say, we'll charge you so much. They'll say, no, we'll give you a lot of business, give us a concession. So they try and get the best rate for the client. Then when we make a campaign, we make about 3 or 4 campaigns to show a client. Then we have a research department, which finds out which campaign works with the consumer. So we have a pre-testing of a campaign. So they go around, show whether it's a film, which is a scratch film, or whether it's a rough layout, they go and show it to different consumers in different parts of the country and get their feedback that people loved this the most, they wanted these changes. So that is the research department. Once a campaign is released, it is tested again to find out if it is working or not. So there's a post-research. So advertising has all these departments. So creative is just one part. There are 2 parts in creative. One is the person who's a copywriter, which means he writes the words that go in an ad or thinks of a concept that goes into an ad. And there's an art director, which decides to actually draw the pictures or make those photographs and how to put that picture, how to put the slogan. So that is the only creative part of advertising. There's a huge other department lot that takes care of advertising. So you don't have to be creative to get into advertising. You can be a marketing person, you can be a numbers person, you can be a research person, and you'll do equally well in advertising.
So how different is it working with multinationals and the domestic companies?
Very honestly, contrary to popular belief, Indian companies never tell lies. Multinationals always tell lies. Indian companies are very honest. I've worked with Amul, I've worked with Vico, I'm advertising for Vico, Vijaydanti, Vico Turmeric Vanishing Cream, Narayani Cream. They are very honest. But if you work with multinationals, they tell all kinds of lies. They create slogans, they create figures, which mean nothing. So I think multinationals lie more. Indian companies are much more honest. So it's more fun working with Indian companies.
Okay. So so this video might go viral.
Yeah. I say that. I don't. That's it. I've always been saying it. So they all keep cursing me all the time. That's why I keep on working out. So they can't beat me up. You know?
Okay. So what? I'll give
you an example of this.
Okay.
You know, we were launching Amul milkshakes in Mumbai years ago. And I did a research study to find out which flavors are more popular. So I went to all these milkshake stalls and fruit juice stalls, and I found out that the most popular flavors that time, maybe it changed now, were strawberry and chocolate. Most people had strawberry and chocolate as the preferred flavor. And that is true even with ice creams. You know, you may have Baskin Robbins selling 32 flavors, but if you ask them which are the flavors that go most, they'll say some variation of chocolate chip, chocolate something, or maybe fresh strawberry, those kinds of flavors. So I went to Dr. Kurian and I said, let's launch our milkshakes in 2 flavors, chocolate and strawberry. Dr. Kurian said, I have chocolate because I have Amul chocolates, I have Nutramul, so I have cocoa powder, I have, so I can launch chocolate. But I don't get strawberries. So I told him, I said, but you don't need real strawberries, you need essence of strawberry. They're not expecting that you'll put real strawberries in this. And he said, no, Bharat, I will not tell a lie. If it is a product going from Amul, it has to have the real thing. So I will not launch a strawberry milkshake because I can't get strawberries right around the year. I can get elaichi right around the year because I have shrikhand and other things where I use elaichi. So I said, but elaichi won't work. And I was young that time. And he said, listen, young man, in life, profit is not everything. There's something called credibility. I don't mind if it doesn't work. So we actually launched Amul milkshakes in 2 flavors, chocolate and elaichi. Elaichi didn't work. And he said, doesn't matter. Even if I have a failure, it doesn't matter, but I will not tell a lie to a consumer. That's what an Indian company does, which a multinational wouldn't do. They'll happily use the essence and sell it.
So we have this photo of yours. As you said, why do I work out? A well-built personality, a fitness freak that you are. What does this look about? And you said like this is a WWF celebrity. Let us sharing the photo.
Yeah, there's a WWE very famous WWE guy.
Yeah.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes, and
he looks a little.
I have captioned it as like बचपन में मेले में बिछड़ा हुआ भाई found in Mumbai.
You know, I must tell you what happened one day. I have an advertising agency in Tanzania, and once I was coming back from Tanzania to Mumbai, and I was on a Qatar Airways flight, and as we were about to land in Doha, one young guy who was sitting back, some working guy, came and sat next to me. And he said, sir, I'm very happy to see you. I'm a very big fan of yours. Can I take a picture with you? I said, look, we are just landing. We'll take it down. I said, I mean, what do you know about me? And he said, you are that famous WWE wrestler, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I said, no, I'm not that. He said, I know you are that, sir. So I said, nahi, wo nahi hu main. He said, my God, you speak Hindi also. So he wouldn't believe that I am not Stone Cold Steve Austin. So when we landed in Doha, he actually took a picture with me thinking I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I tell people, I'm not famous for what I am. I'm famous for what I'm not. So I get compared to this guy quite often. Thankfully, he's now retired, so they don't remember him now.
So since we are talking about fitness, just a quick game, like what kind of advertising and marketing of fitness brand you use?
See, as I said, I launched Nutramul. When I used Dara Singh as a model. They're called brand ambassadors now, but actually what it means is they're model. A film star doesn't like to be called a model, so they're called brand ambassadors. But what it actually means is that they're models who are charging more than normal models. So Dara Singh, when I found that in fitness, I did a survey all India and found that the symbol of fitness, whether it was south, east, west, north, wherever, Dara Singh was the symbol of fitness. Some people always, if you started exercising, they'll say, kya exercise karta hai kya? Dara Singh banna hai kya? So he was that synonymous with fitness. So we used Dara Singh as a model for Nutramul. And I personally feel that I'm right now doing a campaign for a bariatric surgeon. He says, Bharat, situation in India is so bad that nowadays parents don't realize that it's harmful to feed wrong things to your children. So he's saying, I've done a bariatric surgery on a 9-month child. And he says, nowadays, what is happening with youngsters, they order a pizza to eat. And parents say, my kid likes pizza, so we get a pizza. We get a hamburger. We get French fries. Kids don't go out and play. They are playing games on their iPads. So there's not much exercise happening with them. They're doing their studies now online. So the thought that when we were small, our parents had a tough time getting us in the house to come and eat and do things. We were outside playing. Nowadays, parents have a problem to send them out. They want to get them out of the iPad and throw them out. So he made a point that, Bharat, please make a campaign saying fitness from a young age is very important. Make your children do exercise. Don't get them to eat wrong food all the time. They may ask for a pizza or a French fries or a hamburger every time. Don't give it to them. So I think fitness is not something that is just bodybuilding. Fitness is a way of life. It is what you feel about yourself. Because the doctor's point, and he's in the Limca Book of World Records, this doctor that I'm talking to, as the man who's done the highest number of bariatric surgeries. And he says, Bharat, it is very important that from a very young age, we start getting our children to work out, to do some yoga or something like that, and eat properly. You see, otherwise people just sort of entertain their children to do whatever they want to do. So fitness, I don't think, I mean, I was into bodybuilding. I used to be in bodybuilding since my school days. I have a gym in the house. I work out in the house. I used to box for my college. I was in my first year in the junior welterweight category. I used to box. I used to go and rehearse boxing. So I continued that till now. But most people don't do it. Most people would say in college we used to work out. Now we've stopped. हम लोग अभी नौकरी पे लग गए हैं. Now we have a family, so we don't work out. There's nothing to do with that. You have to find time. If you can find time to have a bath, you can find time to do a workout.
So what's the biggest threat to an advertising agency? You not only have to sustain, but also think ahead of others.
Yeah, the biggest threat, I'll tell you what happens. Advertising is not an industry which has a factory, or you don't manufacture anything. You are coming up with ideas all the time. That's what you are supposed to do. So the biggest threat that you have is a creative guy doesn't really need a big establishment and a big investment. So if I have a client, let's say if I have Tata Tea as a client, that is a big client that I have, there will be 20 people or 40 people who will approach Tata Tea and say, we have better ideas to launch your teas. Give us a chance. And the client will give them a chance. And if the client finds that those guys were better than me, they would shift. So the biggest threat in advertising is other creative people who will come and take away your business. Because there's no other investment required. Today I can sit and think of a great idea for any. I mean, I launched Tata Namak. I launched all Tata tea brands. I launched Tata Namak. I launched Tata Cement. I launched Tata Detergent. But anybody could come and say, I could give you a better idea than Bharat can give you. And the client would give the business to them. So that's the biggest threat every advertising agency has. You always have to be constantly better than everybody else. That's very important. And you can't just say, I have a great campaign. A good campaign is not the one that wins an award. A good campaign is the one that increases your sales. You're not in this business to win awards. If you win an award, it's great. I mean, it's a peer group appreciating what we do. But the concept of advertising is not to have awards. The concept of advertising, the purpose of advertising is to make sure that you sell more than what your other competitors are selling. So sales is the objective of advertising. Awards is just a side thing that you get.
So we have one question here. Ashutosh wants to ask you, the multinationals get the upper hand because of the huge advertising budget. How can a smaller domestic company with better quality products combat them with their small budget?
You have to be innovative. That's exactly what happened with Amul. Before my time, see, Amul, when Amul was launched, there was a very big brand called Polson butter in Indian market, which was very popular. Plus, there were other foreign brands. There was a New Zealand Anchor brand, but there were some other international brands available. So Amul was a farmers cooperative in a small little village in Gujarat. I don't know how many of you know what Amul stands for. Do you know what Amul stands for? Amul stands for AMUL, stands for Anand Milk Union Limited.
Wow.
So it was a small farmers cooperative in Anand. Now they had no money. They had very small budgets, and they had to launch this thing against a huge brand called Polson's, which was doing very well. Plus, they were international brands. So they decided that we will not do what everybody else is doing. We'll do something innovative. So they created this Amul Girl. They said we will not spend money on, that time there was no television. They said we'll not spend money on films or press advertising. We'll put more money in hoardings. And we'll keep changing it to make it interesting. We'll have little puns on words. Now that was completely different than what everybody else was doing. This happened because they didn't have money. They said we have limited budget. We are fighting big giants in our industry. So unless we do something that is different and innovative, we will not work. So Amul campaign started with that as a thought. So anybody who wants to fight big companies will have to think, what innovative things can I do? I can't fight them on their battleground. I have to create a niche for myself. And if I have 1,000 rupees, I can't spread it thin all over India. I must say, if I have 1,000 rupees, it'll get too spread if I spread it everywhere. Can I just concentrate on Maharashtra or Tamil Nadu? Only advertise in that area. Because your money has to be enough to sustain a campaign. And little money doesn't sustain a campaign on all India basis. So that's where the media and the planning comes in. How does a small brand, where does a small brand go? Which area in a particular state? Can I go to a complete state? Or I can't afford to go to a state, can I go to some cities? If I'm in Maharashtra, maybe I can't afford all Maharashtra campaign. So can I just do it in Pune or Nagpur or Sangli or Satara, wherever my consumer is? And can I get enough business out of those consumers? So that is what is the planning aspect of advertising. How do you spend the money most effectively and where do you spend it?
There has been a drastic change in the advertising from like print to radio to TV and now social media. So like first you would have at least 30 seconds to convey your message. But now with social media, you just have 5 seconds between apps to put your thoughts through. So is it a setback or is it an enhancement to an advertising agency?
See, I'll tell you how it happens. There was a time when before television came in, advertising agencies used to make a 1-minute film, 60-second film, which was shown in theaters. So if you went to see a movie, before the movie started, you would see advertising films. And they were 60-second films. Then when television came in, people started saying that, look, we can't afford 60 seconds, we'll make 30 seconds or 20 seconds. So what happens in all these things is, when you plan a campaign, your smaller versions, whether it is a 5-second ad or whether it's a slogan on a hoarding, is supposed to remind you of a bigger ad. So these are called reminder ads. You may not see the full ad, but the slogan is the same that you've seen in a bigger film. So if I've seen a film, 30-second film on television, that 5-second part of that which I'm putting on social media reminds me of the 30-second film. So these are reminder ads. So if I put a slogan on a hoarding which has only 8 or 9 words, but that is supposed to remind me of a full campaign that I've read in the press. So they're all complementing each other. So there's a main campaign and there are reminder campaigns. So what you're talking about, a 5-second social media, that's a reminder campaign. That is not supposed to sell you the product. That is supposed to remind you of the product's ad that you've seen in a bigger format. And that is how it should be done cleverly. So the same slogan is used, the same models are used. So the moment you see it, you know this is the ad for this, which I've seen on television, or if I've seen on a hoarding, or if I have in my newspaper, I've seen this ad. So your 5-second ads have to remind you of the bigger ads. Otherwise, it won't work.
So with HD channels as well, saying ad-free serials and ad-free movies without interruption.
Yeah. That is happening because it was happening in the US many years ago. It's coming here now. So the idea is that if you are willing to see a channel without ads, you pay more. Most people don't want to pay more because it's not like television films that there'll be a 10-15 minute ads in between a film. These are people don't mind the 30-60 second ads in between. They would rather save money rather than spend that money. So I don't think that will work as well here. And take for instance an IPL match. Now in an IPL match, every time a over gets over or a batsman gets out, you suddenly see a 20 second ad. Now you're not going to change that for the sake of paying more money. You're going to say, I can bear this, The 20-second ad, I can see it just comes and goes very fast. So as time goes, this will happen. You will get ad-free channels. You'll pay more for that. But sometimes I feel some of the advertising is very entertaining itself. So sometimes the advertising I find is more entertaining than the programs. So you're better watching advertising than the programs.
Yeah. And the news thread, that is the memes, like, the latest being Kokila Ben, Cooker.
Yeah. But those
So,
are,
what do
those
you
are
have to
fun things. They're not serious advertising campaigns. They just come and go. See, advertising has to sustain over a certain period of time, long enough and hard enough. These memes come and go. They're just they add humor to the whole thing, but they don't do much for the campaign. It's just a support that you get without spending too much money.
Okay, so now we'll talk about Bharat as a director. 32 plays and all Golden Jubilee runs. Wow. Where do you derive this information from? Where does this inspiration come from? And how are the practice sessions, and what madness goes behind the scenes? We would like to hear it from you.
See where these plays come from. My plays, which I write comedies, and there are satires. So I make fun of politicians. I make fun of aircraft, airports, airlines, schools. I make fun of all of that. So that inspiration comes from just keeping your eyes and ears open. If you can look at the funny side of everything that is happening around you, it always works. Like I had an airport skit where I talk about how a person carrying a small keychain, which is a gun, is stopped at an airport, but a person who's carrying machine guns is allowed to go through because that people say, hey, that's a terrorist, he's carrying guns. And then the security guy says, but can you see the guns? He says, of course you can see the guns, they're in his hands. He's saying that it's not a concealed weapon. Only concealed weapons are not allowed. So this is making fun of what you see normally in your life. So making people laugh at an establishment is very easy because you hate airlines if they get delayed. You hate airlines if they don't serve you good food. So if you make a joke on that, people are willing to laugh at that. Or I have a whole thing on politicians. I have an entire Antakshari, which is English songs and Hindi film songs, and in which I have every political leader. The latest one had Narendra Modi, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Karunanidhi at that time, Kejriwal, everybody. So all of them, I had a Arnab Goswami debate. So we had Arnab Goswami calling out all these leaders. So we had Sonia Gandhi coming, we had Rahul Gandhi coming, Karunanidhi, Kejriwal, and I came in as Modi. And if you ever see my picture, I look exactly like Modi. I had 2 minutes to get into Modi's outfit because I was the compare. I had to announce the skit. Anant Mahadevan was playing Arnab Goswami. He would come on. I would run inside. I would wear the Modi jacket, the white hair, the beard. I had to do everything and come out. And I come out with a very pretty girl on my arms. And as I walk in, I had Rahul Gandhi asking Sonia, Mummy, who's that girl with Mr. Modi? And he says, for last 3 years, you've been hearing about the Gujarat model. Who do you think the Gujarat model was? That is the Gujarat model. So we kept on changing this show after show. And we made fun of everybody. See, I don't take sides. I don't make fun of Congress, BJP or whatever. I make fun of everybody. So no one complains because I'm not taking sides and making fun of one person. If I'm making fun of Rahul Gandhi, I'm making fun of Mr. Modi, I'm making fun of Karunanidhi, I'm making fun of Sonia Gandhi, I'm making fun of Kejriwal. So people take it hopefully in the right spirit. And I keep on working out. So if they don't like it, they can curse me on print, but they can't come and fight with me. I can beat them up. So I have to keep fit.
So now, theaters are live presentations, and one of your acts had 275 actors and live actions from elephants and horses.
Yeah, that was a Marathi play. It was a Marathi play called Zanta Raja, which was very popular. It was always an outdoors. So it had a 3-story set. It had about 280 or 300 actors, dancers, performers, live elephants, live horses. I did that the government asked me to do that in English. So I did that entire 3-hour play in English. I wrote that whole play, recorded the whole play, and we performed this outdoors. and that was done only for the foreign consulates and embassy staff. They wanted to show these people a thing about Shivaji's life, and they wouldn't understand Marathi, so it had to be done in English. So I did that entire play in English. I have done, as I said, 32 plays, and we've always had fun. And the biggest fun of doing a play is not the performance; it is the rehearsal. We have so much fun rehearsing a play. It's unbelievable. We rehearse for some 1.5, 2 months. We have fun. We eat. In fact, we eat more than rehearse. At least in my place, when everybody meets, we first tell jokes to each other. Then I tell stories to everybody, and they hate me for it. And my actors are quite rude. Initially, they're very respectful to me. They say, "Sir, what time shall we rehearse?" and things. Once they get to know me, and then if I'm not in town and if they rehearse, then they send me a message on WhatsApp saying, "Sir, we rehearsed yesterday. Our rehearsal got over in 45 minutes. If you were there, the rehearsal would take 2 hours because for 1 hour, 15 minutes, you have to listen to your stories." So they are rude enough to tell me that. But we have great fun. We become great friends when we do these plays. We travel all over the world. And it's a fantastic thing. Live theatre is a completely different experience. Anybody who does theatre, there'll always be funny things that happen in the theatre. Somebody forgets a dialogue, somebody is missing that day, somebody else has to do his role, somebody's dhoti comes off backstage, so he can't take an entry. These kinds of things happen all the time. But tragic things also happen. I'll give you one example. My very first play was an adaptation of a Marathi play. There's a legendary Marathi play called Tuza Hai Tuza Pashi. There's a legend in Marathi called P.L. Deshpande. He's one of the most respected writers in Marathi, humor writers. His play Tuza Hai Tuza Pashi I did in English. It was my first play. It had Manmohan Krishna. It had all kinds of people from different regional theatres. And it was a 3-act play. And the main character was a character called Kakaji, who in the second half of the second act and the entire third act was his act. He had huge dialogues that time. I was doing a small role of a driver. I had just small entries, 2-3 entries. And we were performing in Pune for the Pune Women's Council. Packed hall. And there was a person called Colonel Rajadeksha who was doing the Kakaji's role. Very fine actor, old man. And I was sitting in the wings. I had to do the telephone bells that time. So I was sitting and watching through the window. And the first act got over. Second act, Kakaji leaves. He has an entry again after 25 minutes. He went backstage and had a heart attack. The show was going on. He suddenly fell down. Now the show is going on. There were people on the stage acting out. We sent somebody out, got a doctor from the audience. He came back and said he's got a cardiac arrest. I phoned up. There's a hospital called Ruby General Hospital in Pune. He said, I booked a room. I'm sending him there. Now the play is going on. There's an entire half second act and the full third act left to be done. It's a packed house, sponsored show. So one of the senior actors came and said, I said, what do we do now? He said, you know the lines, dialogue. I said, yeah, I've written those dialogues. I know them, but I'm not as good an actor as this guy. He said, we don't have a choice. So as he was being taken on a stretcher, we removed his costume. He had a French beard like mine now. We removed his beard. I put on that costume. We eliminated the character of the driver. And without stopping it for a second, the show was going on outside. There was Harish Patel, there was Vishali Gokhale, there was Shehnaz Patel, there was Mohan Bhandari, all on stage. They didn't know what was happening backstage. And suddenly, instead of Colonel Sahab coming as Kakaji, I came in as Kakaji. And they were quite shocked to suddenly see me. And we did that entire play without stopping it for a second. And the person died later on. He died, not immediately, died in the hospital about 2-3 days later. But these are the kinds of things that happen in theatre. You must have the presence of mind to continue doing this, which is what makes theatre such a wonderful experience. In a film, on a film shooting, somebody falls sick, you stop the shooting. You do it 3 days later. Or if somebody dies, you change the thing, whatever. It's happened many times. I did a film called R. Rajkumar, in which the main villain, some guy from Telugu guy, who was the main villain, during the shooting, he died. He really died. So we stopped the shooting for some 10 days. Then they got a duplicate who looked similar to him. and took longer shots and didn't show his face clearly. In a film, you can do all this. In a theater, it's live. It's going on there, and that's the most fantastic thing of a theater.
So now, Bharat, as an actor, we know two actors who do one film a year. One is Bharat.
Yeah, there are two actors in the entire Bollywood thing. There's who do one film a year. One is Amir Khan, and one is Bharat Davolkar. The only difference is Amir Khan gets about 1,000 films offered to him, and he does one film. He chooses one from that. I get only one film offered to me, which I do. So whichever film is offered to me, I do. I don't have a choice. But and I'm the only actor in Bollywood who is a one-take artist, which means a director never asks me for a second take. That is because I'm so bad that they know that no matter how many takes they do, I'll do the same thing. I'll give the same expression, I'll do the same toning, so they don't waste time. I have acted with Shah Rukh Khan, I've acted with Salman, I've acted with Amitabh Bachchan. They've had to take extra takes. But my take is always fine. In fact, when I was doing a film called Sarkar 3, I had a scene with Amitabh Bachchan. And we finished the scene. Now, I have acted before this in a film called Company with Ram Gopal Verma. So he knows me, he's a friend of mine. So he said, okay, he knows that I will not do anything better. So Mr. Bachchan felt bad. He said, Ramu, do you think we can make one change in what Bharatji just now said? So Ramu said, no, for me, because he knows that I will not better it. I'll do the same thing. But because Amitabh Bachchan said that, Ramu said, Bharat, do one more take with a slight change of dialogue. Otherwise, nobody asks me for a change. No second takes. So one film a year and one take. That's my specialty. And I can act equally badly in 6 languages. I have done many Hindi films with all the top stars. I have done with Salman 2-3 films. I have done Shah Rukh 1 film with Ajay Devgan. I have done Amitabh Bachchan, Vivek Oberoi, Saif Ali Khan, everybody. I have done very big Marathi films.
Here's a result.
I have done 2 Tamil films, one with Rajnikant and one directed by Tyagarajan with Prashant. I have done 2 Malayalam films with the superstars of Malayalam films with Mohanlal, Dilip, Jairam, Prithviraj. I have done one Telugu film with Nagarjuna. And in all of them, I can act equally badly. Although I prefer acting in South Indian films because when I act badly, they think I'm acting badly because I don't understand the language. When I do Hindi and Marathi, they know that I know the language and I still act so badly. So South Indian film is my first love.
Okay. So, Bharat, as a person now, from how much we have learnt about you, you lead a very uniquely creative life. From owning an auto rickshaw to living in a tree house in a place like Mumbai. Are these side effects of being a creative person?
No, there are side effects. I don't like to buy anything off the shelf. I hate the thought. My own clothes, I buy something and I design it. I do something else with it. I cut it. My house, I just bought a land and I designed this whole house. So that you see behind me is my bedroom. It's like a cave. So I have made a cave here and I have a bed which hangs from the ceiling. You have about 8 steps to climb into my bed. No, I like doing these kind of things. I don't like a normal, like I bought a rickshaw. No, I bought a rickshaw because I always had a bike earlier. When I was in college, law college and things, I had a bike. Then years later, I thought when I was in advertising, I'll buy a bike again. And then I realized that no, a bike, now it will be inconvenient because if I have a laptop, where will I carry a laptop? If I have a meeting to go to with people, how will they come with me? So I thought I'll buy a rickshaw. I didn't know that rickshaw is so expensive. I have a rickshaw now for the last 15 years. And 15 years ago, a rickshaw was costing, I think, 1,10,000 rupees as the bare model without the hood and everything. So I went and bought a second-hand rickshaw for 17,000 rupees. Then I opened it up. I painted it silver. I have a house at Worli. So I got a sticker made in Bangkok, a Harley Davidson sticker, and called it Worli Davidson and stuck it on that. And I have a license. I drive the rickshaw. And a rickshaw in Mumbai can't go beyond Mahim. There's a restriction. But mine is a private rickshaw. So I can take my rickshaw anywhere I want to go to. So I drive that rickshaw. I have a seat. I have 3 people sitting at the back. Now I like doing these kinds of things. It's just just having fun. It's too boring to buy a Mercedes car and sit into it and drive.
There's one incident with the rickshaw.
Oh, there are many incidents, but the one incident that I have always talked about is, Indian Navy has a annual function at the Navy Nagar. They have a beautiful hall, and every year they call one outside speaker to address the top brass of Navy. So admirals, their wives, rear admirals, commanders, whoever is in town, they all call there, and they are supposed to speak in that hall. So one year they called me, and they said, "Sir, 10 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning is your talk." I said, "Look, I am never late. I've learned this from Dr. Kurian. Dr. Kurian, I had worked with him for 16 years. He was never late by even 10 seconds. Even today, you will notice that if you said, let's meet at 3:30, I would be there at 3:15. If you let meet at 4, I would be there at 10 to 4. I'm always early." So I told them, "Don't worry, I will not be late. I'll come by 9:30. They said, "No, no, sir, you can't do that. We have a protocol that when all the top brass, the admirals and the wives, they're having tea, we send our riders, those motorcycle riders, to herald in the chief guest. So the car comes behind those riders. So where are you coming from?" I said, "I'm coming from Chembur." They said, "Okay, you wait outside Regal Theatre. We'll send our riders there." So I went in a rickshaw and I called up this guy, Commander Vasan, I think his name was. I said, "Commander, I'm here." He said, "My riders are waiting there for you. Which car are you in?" I said, "I'm in a rickshaw." He said, "No, no, sir, don't joke." I said, "No, I'm really in a rickshaw. I can see your riders." So I went for that function, the top brass of Navy, with two uniformed riders on their white bikes with those flags flying, and me in a rickshaw behind them. And after I finished my talk, I had to wait for over 1.5 hours because everybody wanted to take a picture in my rickshaw. And they are defense people, they're very disciplined. So they were all waiting in a queue. And the admiral would come and say, he would sit in the front, his wife would sit at the back. Then they would take a picture. Then the wife would sit in the front driving the rickshaw. The admiral would sit at the back. So I waited for an hour and a half because I said if I had a Rolls Royce, they wouldn't have done this. But that's how it helps. When you're poor and proud, it helps a lot.
So, what is your stress buster? Like,
I have no stress. I have never ever had stress in my life. I am one person. I advertise for Aspro. I have never had a headache in my life. I don't know what a headache is. In my entire life, from my childhood till today, I have never ever had a headache. I'm never stressed.
so what's the mantra for that?
I advertise for, I don't use. I advertise for Aspro. I've never taken an Aspro. I advertise for all Vijay Mallya's liquors. Everything that's in the market, I've advertised for it. McDowell #1, Signature Whiskey, Honeybee Brandy, London Pilsner Beer, High Society Gin. And I have never touched liquor in my life. I have never, not even touched wine or beer in my entire life. It's not as if I used to drink in college and I gave up. I have never touched it. So whatever I advertise for, I advertise for. I don't use it necessarily. So I have no stress to answer your question.
So we have one question here. How do you define in advertisement the thin line between honesty, vulgarity, misleading ads? Which campaign has given you the most satisfaction?
Vulgarity and misleading ads are very short term. They don't work. A good advertiser knows the fact that you can't fool the people all the time. You can't shock the people all the time. Advertising has to be responsible if it has to be long term. See, vulgarity doesn't help because you're not talking to one section of people. You're talking to a large section of people of different kinds. You're talking to people in urban India. You're talking to people in rural India. Everybody has a different point of view. You can't afford to take a chance of being vulgar. And I can mislead you once. I can tell you if you buy this product, it will grow hair on your head. And you will believe me if I have a good campaign. And you'll buy it once. If it does not grow hair on your head, you'll never buy it again. So misleading advertising does not work. Advertising has to be honest. Advertising has to be sober. And advertising has to be something that appeals to people that you don't even know. You know, you're talking to people, let's say in a village in Bihar. You don't know what they like. You can't take a chance. You're trying to sell the product to them. And I'm doing Tata Tea advertising. I'm not just selling it to women in or families in Mumbai, Pune, or Delhi or Chennai. I'm selling it to people in Bihar. I'm selling it to some corner in Uttar Pradesh. I'm selling it to somebody in Kerala. I don't know how they would react. So I have to be very careful of what I say. So I can't mislead people from a long-term point of view. I can't get vulgar. I have to be, and it's a family thing. Ad reaches everybody. You can't offend people. You're not in the business of offending people. You're in the business of selling a product in the best possible manner.
One more question was, what was your first project and how well did it do?
My first project was I did a campaign for Tata Tea, had a tea called Leo Chai, Leo Dust. And I was doing a campaign in Kannada for that. So that was the first campaign I wrote in English, and then they translated that in Kannada. And that did very well. I still remember the Kannada version of that. It was about a very dominating wife and a very henpecked husband. And the henpecked husband goes and buys this Leo tea pack. It has a lion on top, picture of a lion. And he keeps it in the kitchen. And when the wife goes into the kitchen, that lion comes out of the thing, growling. And she shouts in Kannada, she's saying, Ayo, Simha, Simha. And he says, Hey, Nanu nina patiraya. Meaning, I'm your husband. Kududirave, Simha Chapina, Leo Das Chaha. Tata Finde Evara, Simha Chapina, Leo. I remember the Kannada version. It was my first ad that I did. And that did very well. Then I launched all Tata Tea products. And when you say which is your favorite ad, I got more publicity or popularity because of Amul butter, because somehow that caught everybody's fancy. See, what happens in advertising is, advertising people are not famous. You don't know who's written which ad. Very rarely, some of the best ads, like say today's ads, if you see on television or your social media, and somebody asks you, do you know who's written that ad? You wouldn't know. At the most, you may say, I know this agency has done it, but which person has written it, you wouldn't know. Somehow, because of Amul and my theatre, it became known that I write Amul butter hoardings. So it gave me popularity, but there were lots of other campaigns. As I said, I've launched HIT, I've launched Bank of India, I've LIC, I've launched 30 Plus, Videocon. I launched Videocon as a company. So I've done many of these ads, which are all very dear to my heart. And when I write them, I think they're brilliant. 6 months later, I feel they were quite bad. But that's how it is.
Does every idea work? Like
No.
all?
No. In fact, more ideas fail than they work. But you'll never find people coming and telling you about their failures. They'll always tell you about their successes. But you'll have lots of failures. We have lots of things that go wrong because we don't understand how a consumer thinks. I'll give you I don't know if you have time, I'll give you an example. I launched a tea for Tata Tea called Prestige, which at that time was the highest priced tea in the country. It was not in a cardboard box, it was in a tin. And we were doing a campaign to sell it only in Delhi. There was limited stock. And I did a campaign with a friend of mine, Shekhar Kapoor, who's a very famous director, and he was also an actor. So I got him to direct that film, and I got him to act in that film. And now in my mind, I'm a Mumbai boy, grown up in Mumbai. So in my mind, when you are very rich, you dress like very poor. You don't wear designer clothes when you're very rich. I mean, forget the torn jeans and all that, so youngsters, but I'm saying even otherwise, I find that as you grow up, maybe you're wearing a cotton shirt, then you can afford better, so you wear maybe polyester shirts, then you can afford better, then you again start wearing cotton shirts. Then what was looking like a crumpled shirt earlier now looks like a fashionable shirt because it's crumpled. You start wearing chappal. So according to me, in Mumbai, what I see around is the very rich dress casually. So my campaign was, you see Shekhar Kapoor, he's sitting down there and he's got his feet up and he's got a hole in his shoe and he wears sort of old kind of trousers and some old t-shirt. And he's talking and saying, Zindagi mein नौकर चाकर धन दौलत वो सारा ठीक है लेकिन प्रेस्टीज का होना बहुत जरूरी है. And as he's talking, the camera starts pulling out and you realize that he's sitting in a helicopter. He's the owner of that helicopter. And helicopter is flying and he's talking to you. And the helicopter lands at his seaside bungalow. And everybody comes to sort of grab him and congratulate him for whatever he has done. And he suddenly turns back to the camera and says, so as I was saying कि जिंदगी में नौकर चाकर पैसा होना ठीक है लेकिन प्रेस्टीज होने की बहुत जरूरी है उसके साथ अगर आपके पास पैसा भी हो तो और भी something like that. I didn't realize that the campaign is getting released in Delhi. Now, from what I now understand, the Delhi people are different from Bombay people. In Delhi, if you have money, you have to show that money. It's very important which part of Delhi you stay in, which car you drive, what kind of clothes you wear. If you are rich, you wear designer clothes, you wear gold watches, you wear a Rolex. So this is तो भिखारी का चाय है ये तो. इसके जूते फटे हुए हैं, इसके कपड़े देखो कैसे हैं. That whole thing was flopping. Every report that we got, people said that this is the most expensive tea, and this is how you're advertising this. We had to change that entire campaign and redo a completely new film. The only thing that was remembered in that film was ये आदमी helicopter में बैठा है. So we used a helicopter again, but we used it in a fantastic way. That the chef is suited, booted, he goes in a helicopter, he lands on some mountain where there's a whole table laid out for them. There is Afghan hound dogs there and beautiful women and waiters serving tea. And that worked. But initially we went wrong because we didn't understand. I thought like a Mumbai guy trying to sell to a Delhi guy. And it doesn't work. You must understand your consumer. So lots of times these things happen. Lots of times you go wrong because you don't understand your consumer.
Last two questions, quick questions. Which is the most effective advertising media for smaller budgets?
Most effective advertising medium now, today, is social media. Because it doesn't cost anything. So you can put it on social media. Word of mouth is more credible than any advertising campaign. If your friends tell you this is a good thing, you would believe that. You don't believe advertising campaigns so much as you. So the best thing to do is determine what your area is. That if I am in this town, I want to approach these people. Let's say I want to approach college students. Then do I have a hoarding next to their colleges? Then maybe I can put it on a hoarding. Because if you try and go mass media, you try and go television, it's very expensive. You try and go press, it's very expensive. Unless you can take a local press. If you're in Ahmednagar and you take a Ahmednagar local press, that's fine. But you can't take a national press. So determining who your consumer is and which is the cheapest way of reaching that consumer. If you can identify that, then it doesn't cost too much money. And they do something interesting. Entertain people. Don't try and do a hard sell. Be emotional. Indians are very emotional people. So if you can appeal to them emotionally, appeal to their heart, not to their heads. If you can appeal to their hearts, there are great chances that you will be successful.
Yeah, you should know that target out.
Whether it's emotional, whether it is humorous, it always works in India. If it's musical, Indians love music. So jingles work. In the olden days, kids were, if guests came over, people would say, Nursery rhyme bol ke sunao. आजकल बोलते हैं jingle बोल के सुनाओ. Because kids remember jingles better than nursery rhymes. So music works. It gets more memorable with music. And think of it, the Vico Vajrayanti song you still remember. For years they've been using the same song. Vico Turmeric Vanishing Cream you still remember. Or Lifebuoy, the jingle you still remember. Lots of jingles which stay in your mind. So music works, emotions work, and used properly, humor works.
Okay. Yeah. You should know your target audience and how to actually get in.
That is the most important thing. Knowing what we call as your target group. If you don't know who you are talking to, you will go completely wrong. You must first identify who you are talking to and what they like.
Well, we have one question for the audience, and this will be our last question. And actually, it is good for the white aura. It says, is there any particular product you would love to take on as your project? Tips for white aura on how to advertise.
Yeah, sure. If I knew what White Aura did and who they are trying to appeal to, I would love to do it. I love to advertise for, and advertising is my first passion. So I would love to advertise. I advertise for everything. I advertise. I was an advisor for Ram Bandhu Masale, the Rathis of Nasik. They have this great brand called Ram Bandhu Masale. So I've been advising them for many years. I advise lots of people because I love advertising. So if White Aura has something and they say, please tell us how we can do this, I would love to help you out if I can.
Okay, your perspective is very refreshing, Mr. Bharat Dhabulkar. And when you are not afraid, I think
Afraid to be yourself, that is when you are incredible. And that's Bharat Dhabulkar for you all. Thank you, audience, for joining us. But before that, over to my friend, my partner Rajshri, for thanking Mr. Bharat Dhabulkar for honoring us with his presence at the White Aura.
We bet you all have smiled with each of Mr. Bharat's real life experiences. That's Hakuna Matata. Leave your worries and extract humor from these little incidents in your life. Sir, your ability to recall random factoids at the right time is very impressive. You were on a roll. The experiences were funnier because you were narrating it. A man with so many traits and in an industry where every second counts, the survival of not only the fittest but also the fastest, and you still being so jovial and living life with a motto, my way or highway. So there's ordinary and then there's you. We are very thankful for the information that you have given us for our entertainment and making this simple evening to an amazing infotainment one. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Rajeshri, and thank you for being a Rathi. And in spite of that, being so nice to me, Arun, and not like Arun. But I must tell you one thing: Hakuna Matata, although it the song in Lion King, it is actually a Swahili word. I have an agency in Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania. I work. Hakuna Matata, which means no worry, is a phrase they use there all the time. They have one is Hakuna Matata, which means no worry, and they have a phrase called Hakuna Haraka, which means no hurry. So they say Hakuna Matata and Hakuna Haraka. So don't worry and don't be in a hurry. So these are actual phrases in Swahili that they use there. So please follow that.
so. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, audience, for being there for this lovely session. We wish you a very happy new year because we'll be meeting you the next year, 2021, and hope it gets more exciting for you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Bharat.